Hi, you. How are you doing?
Well, how are you? I like your sweats.
Oh, thank you. Sure, I can see mine here.
We're gonna call the work session to order. I was asked by Mayor Smith to run the meeting in his absence. He is out of town. Tonight's work session is to hear an update regarding post office issues affecting Gearhart, including where things stand, what options USPS is evaluating, and what next steps may look like. This is an informational discussion so the council and the community can better understand the situation. Chad, you want to get us started?
Yes, Ryan, are you on? There he is. Great, let me see if I can. That work?
Yep, we're here.
And you can hear us all right?
Loud and clear. We can see all those wonderful faces there in the room. Yeah.
There we go, we've got you now. You're all baby. Okay, Ryan, it looks like Mayor Carey is not yet connected. He was having some internet issues earlier, so he's out of town and working on that. So I think we can continue moving forward and see how that goes, and I'll communicate with Carey over the phone. And then Councilor Planner just did kind of an update of where we're at, and just wanted to get from you folks kind of an update of where we're at in the process and what options we've got coming up available to us.
Chad, can we start by asking them to introduce themselves and what they do for USPS so people can know?
Absolutely. Would you guys mind introducing yourselves to the group?
Sure. Good evening, folks. My name is Eric Gilbert, and I am the district manager that oversees all of Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. And of course, Mr. Ryan Chasteen is my manager of operations integrations, or what we would label as my chief of staff.
Great, thank you.
We are the only ones here today.
Thank you.
All right. So do you folks want to get started and give us kind of an update of where we're at?
Well, thanks for letting us join your meeting again, and it was a pleasure speaking to you folks last week and giving you kind of an overview. As a couple days have passed now, I think, as we spoke last week about the options that we have for mail delivery there in Gearhart, and one that we want to definitely underscore for sure is that we want to provide the best service we can for the residents there in Gearhart. We want them to get reliable, efficient mail service every single day. That is our expectation from our own folks here, and that's our commitment to you as well. As we have progressed through trying to find another supplier for the Gearhart office there, which is a contract office, that's not a postal employee. That is someone that we have a contract with to provide delivery and retail services to. As you all are aware, over the last several years, that's changed hands a couple times. And sometimes that is common, and sometimes that's not. Sometimes we have many of them that are, stationary for quite some time. But unfortunately, there in Gearhart, we've had a turnover. We don't like that any more than you do. We want consistent service. Over the last, it's probably been, I think Robert left there in February. And before that, we were trying to find a supplier. We've been unable to do that. And for multiple facets of reasons. Either they have, the suppliers that have applied have either backed out, haven't been able to provide all the appropriate paperwork and then backed out. Some have submitted outrageous sums for wanting to run the office, and it's just not feasible to do that. And so we need to look at other options for providing mail service at Gearhart. And we are really coming to the conclusion that probably the best solution is going to be trying to find a centralized location in Gearhart that we can install cluster boxes for delivery and have a delivery carrier deliver the mail and the parcels there. And that's where we would like to work with the city there to try to find a location for us to do that. In the meantime, services, no matter which way we go, will continue at Seaside for customers to pick up and get their P.O. box mail there, and of course, mail any packages that they need to. But that is, as the days have kind of gone on since our last conversation, it's kind of becoming more clear that that's kind of the option that we would like to look at with you moving forward.
May I ask a question, please?
Mm-hmm.
My name is Preston Devereaux. I'm a city councilor here. The current location or the past location of the post office, I understand that the rent was increasing all the time. Is that a factor in the people that are applying for the contract? If there was a new location, would that be a viable option to move the post office?
We're unaware of if the rent was increasing or not because the facility was not postal owned. It was a private building that was ran privately with the exception of the contract for postal operations. But whether the rent was going up or not, I don't know if that was disclosed to us from the previous owner. We wouldn't know that, sir.
But if there was another location to move the post office to in Gearhart, would that be a viable option?
That was part of the solicitation. Not necessarily to acquire or assume the current location, but anything that would be viable, right? That was part of the solicitation process. It would just make more sense for them to assume the current property and continue with the operation because everything is already in existence, but that would be up to the new occupant and or business holder who was in contract with us. So yes, it would be viable if there is another facility that could house and be feasible based on the needs, total box occupants, etc.
Councilor Cochran, so the current location, have you ruled that out as being a viable alternative for cluster boxes? Since the boxes already exist there, you might need to set up something else for packages, but is there any reason the post office wouldn't rent that space?
For the postal service to assume renting as far as the occupancy? Is that the
Right, for the boxes. Yeah, exactly.
It's feasible, just not viable. And what I mean by viable, that's more of an overhead to not only to the customers, but to the organization. It is cheaper for us to go to street delivery from a centralized standpoint. That is the long-term solution. The short-term solution will not be for us to continue to pay rent or leasing agreement years out, regardless of the cost. We wouldn't own the building, so the cost will increase for the United States Postal Service, just like it could possibly increase for the individual owner, to the gentleman's question.
Mr. Gilbert, who owns the boxes?
The owner of the property.
Is it the owner of the property or is it the United States Postal Service?
You talking about the equipment that's inside the facility, sir?
Correct.
Those boxes, depending on the type, would be owned by the Postal Service. And then once the facility is closed, we would repurpose or relocate those boxes And if they're outdated and or won't accommodate the Seaside post office, then we would need to modify and retrofit the Seaside post office so that they can accommodate.
Many times with these, when these close down, we call depostalize it. And that we go in and we take out the equipment that we have installed. Many of those PO boxes are definitely postal owned. And the one conversation I had with the property owner there was we could leave them in there because she didn't want us to go in there and rip and things out of the walls and stuff. When if we did find a solicitor that was willing to use that space again and then go reinstall them all back in again, that's pointless, right? So eventually, if we are not able to, which definitely is tending to lean that way of not finding a supplier, we are going to have to go in there and take those out. But that is normally what happens. And if we don't have another place to put them, then we put them in storage somewhere for use down the road.
And or destroy if
Yeah.
they're old and or outdated. So we would recycle them if they're no longer usable.
Would you mind if I hopped in with a couple of clarification questions before we get too far ahead? Because you said you talked about street delivery. And I know that in my previous conversations with you, you were very clear about the semantics of what we're talking about when we're talking about street delivery. I don't want anybody to misconstrue that as that you're talking about delivery to the end of their driveway. My understanding from our previous conversations is you no longer do that. You define street delivery as cluster box delivery. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the benefit to our folks that have PO boxes here in town would be they would no longer use a PO box as their address. They would use their home address. So if they were ordering packages on Etsy or any other provider that said, no, I don't deliver to PO boxes, they wouldn't have to be creative about hiding the fact that they're asking for items to be delivered to a PO box. They would use their street address. Is that correct?
That is also correct.
And then our addresses would be entered into your system that most companies, for example, Verizon and others use in order to create business accounts for people that want to set up businesses from their home. If I want to go to Verizon and get a business internet, they verify my address by using your postal system database, is my understanding. And if they can't verify you in that, then I know from personal experience that they want to decline you in getting that service.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be entered into your database.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Spot on.
So the centralized cluster box, wherever it's located, I don't have a number. It's not a post office box. So somehow I know the right box to go to using my address. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, we would label the boxes. Most of the time, we do not put the address on the outside of the box. A lot of people don't want that because of just security reasons or, privacy. And so, but you are assigned, we do it in many different ways. A through H is the title on top of the box, and you're given keys in your box 15, your mailbox 15 of box B or box D, something like that.
Compartment.
Mm-hmm.
The street address associated to the residence, the cluster box is almost like in a grid from top to bottom, left to right, and it's in numerical order based on street address. 1, 2, 3 Main Street, all even in one row and all odd in another row. So we have a system. Nevertheless, the street address will be associated to a compartment inside the cluster box. If that clarifies it for you.
So I think that folks could get a better idea of what you're talking about if they drove down to off of 5th. Down here we have cluster boxes. That's one. Gearhart is already serviced with a number of cluster boxes, but that's one of them. Or if you drive down Holiday towards the post office, I noticed the other day that there are a number of cluster boxes along Holiday and Seaside. All of those homes are served by cluster box, some of various sizes. Some are larger and some are smaller. But the bottom line is you're telling us that you don't have the location, that's a moot point because you don't have anybody who wants to take over any location right now. You don't have a contractor lined up.
No,
Yeah, that's
You have
correct.
no interest.
we sent out
So we can
multiple.
continue to go to Seaside, or we could figure out a plan B.
I mean, we want to, I mean, I try to put myself in everybody else's shoes. You know, I don't want to go to Seaside to pick up my mail. I want it to be as close to my house as I can. And it depends on, you know, patience of people. I mean, we could keep soliciting and soliciting and soliciting and keep things how they are. I don't think that's a very convenient option for the residents in Gearhart. I think we need to come up with a solution quickly that we can get the mail service back to the residents there locally and minimize the travel and still provide that service to the community. And because a solicitation is still based off of what the supplier thinks it's worth to run the post office. And I will just tell you right now that the revenue that we bring in at Gearhart, which is no mock of anything, it's just the reality of it, it pales in comparison to what we are paying and have been paying a supplier. If it was your own business, you would have even lasted a year. So we are looking at cost efficiency on this as well. Even though we're willing, if it was reasonable to continue, we're seeing that the bids that are coming in are really not coming in where it is reasonable and feasible to do that. And moving to street delivery is probably the best option.
And
Well,
the
and
most,
I understand. I'm sorry, go ahead.
and the most feasible when it comes to the customers, to Mr. Chastain's point, within Gearhart, right? The business model, the CPU goes away. The business model is to force everyone into a PO box, with the nearest location being Seaside. That is the business model. Our effort is to reduce the impact to the customers based on this unforeseen circumstance at a cost, of course, the cost being one, the financially, and then two, from burdensome and or hardship. So we're taking everything into account. We think the most feasible solution at this point is for folks to go to cluster street side delivery within the community. If we can't agree with that process, albeit there is some cost involved, then the ultimate solution is traversing to Seaside to retrieve mail from a PO box in the facility. Those are our options.
Have you thought about, not all of the PO box owners in Gearhart actually lived in Gearhart. Many of those were people from outside Gearhart that purchased PO boxes here for whatever reasons, because, you know, I even talked to some folks that could get mail delivered to their home and wanted a PO box. So we would be talking about the people that legitimately live in Gearhart and have no other way to get their mail. And others, if they want to purchase a PO box, they can go down to Easy Ship or someplace else. Is that what you're proposing?
The thought is what we would call permanent residency, correct?
Yeah.
Right? We would not put what we would call transient customers and our locations inside the cluster box. Now, you could have a dwelling or a residence that could be a rental, but it is still established residency, and whomever is at that location could be receiving mail inside one of our centralized delivery locations.
And that's where we spoke last week of, you know, trying to get from the city the list of addresses that are part of this, or, you know, initiative essentially, so that we can have a box location for every one of them. Because, for instance, and I was looking through some of the data that we have for PO boxes, you know, you're not required to get street delivery, you know, and you can not say, I don't want street delivery. I've rented a PO box. And there may be Gearhart residents that have PO boxes rented in Seaside. And when this comes to fruition, they may say, well, I still don't want to go to a cluster box. I want to keep my PO box. No problem. Not one bit. But we still will have out on the street a location for that address in case they move. Or maybe one day they decide they want to get their mail in Gearhart, and they'll have their box located there for them so that everybody will always have it, because people move in and they move out all the time. And so, and if these people that come currently that rent PO boxes for several months, that option will not be available anymore in Gearhart. They'll just have to do that in Seaside if that's what they want temporarily. Or they can use the street address because they'll have a mailbox.
Or they could use Easy Ship or whatever. And as
Yes.
far as mailing packages out, they'd no longer be able to mail them out in town. But they, again, would not have to go to downtown Seaside during spring break. They could choose Warrenton. They could choose any number of post office boxes. Okay,
Yes.
or
Correct.
stations, I'm sorry.
Can
Yep.
you tell us who pays for the installation and maintenance of the cluster boxes?
Well, we pay for, typically it will be onto the customer, depending on the situation and circumstances. But based on the dynamics of this issue, right, we partially have agreed to pick up most of the cost to establish and or have these boxes installed.
What would be the cost to the people who are actually going to be using the boxes?
There's no fee to the current customer. The only fee that could at some point develop is if we have to change the lock for that cluster box. Customer loses keys, folks are in and out, it's a rental property, they didn't maintain the keys, we need to change the lock. There is a fee associated with that. But at the original install, when we change the locks or install all the new locks, everyone will get 3 keys. There will be no charge initially.
Post office does not keep residential keys on hand. So if a customer loses their keys or it breaks or something, we do that. Someone can come in and ask for a key change, but you can also get a local locksmith to come out there and do it as well. So, but that's the only cost if that ever happens.
What kind of a time frame are we looking at for this transition?
It depends on the part of the transition you're looking for. So we haven't even established a location, folks. That's the starting point. So we're talking about 38 boxes on an average, cluster boxes, to include a few parcel lockers on pedestals to assist in the accommodation of parcel delivery. But a reminder to everyone, we have no agreed upon location. And then if there is a location that is agreed upon, is it suitable to fit the need of the simple ask for the 38 boxes, etc.? Then we would have to contract to get the concrete poured due to code. And then we would have to get the boxes installed. And then each box would need to be keyed, i.e. individual locks installed on the compartments, etc. So when we met last week, we talked about an expedited course, but it has to start with an agreed upon location. We have no plot to move forward on via our contractor to say, hey, let's get these boxes moved and or installed. So at a glance, it could take anywhere from 30 days to 2 months. It could be 6 months to a year, depending on the partnership and or what's needed. But right now, ideally, it would be a location that already has slab or concrete that we can just mount and anchor to. Ideally. If not, we would have to start with, like I mentioned, the pouring and the measurements and et cetera.
So have you stopped looking for somebody to take over our post office? Have
No.
you stopped that process?
No, asked and answered, ma'am. We opened up with, we solicited as recently as last week. And then either it didn't come in feasibly as far as the finances were concerned, or they just ultimately weren't interested after the needs and the ask from the Postal Service. But at some point, the solicitations have to cease because the longer we delay the process, the longer customers have to continue to go to Seaside to retrieve their mail. And this project cannot go on for a year, 2 years down the line, right? With weather coming, et cetera, et cetera. So our thought process is to agree upon a location. We start the contracting so we can get the boxes installed so we can resume delivery, because all we want to do is deliver the mail.
Sir, you're talking about multiple locations, are you not, when you talk about 38 boxes?
No, we're talking one location.
One location with 38 boxes for everybody?
That's correct.
Well, what if you have 200 people using boxes and you only have 38? I don't understand how that works.
So the box, remember I mentioned the box is based on the grid. So inside one cluster box, you can have anywhere from 16 to 24 customers, which is 16 to 24 addresses.
She asked you to keep it down in here.
I'm sorry?
Sir,
No, I'm sorry, we were
can I
talking
ask
about.
for quiet in the audience, please?
I'm
So what-
sorry, we couldn't hear what you were saying. Can you back up just a little bit?
Yeah, so just one cluster box can house either 16 to 24 addresses and 2 parcel lockers. So if it's on an average of 600 to 700 residences, our math shows we would need about 38 cluster boxes to accommodate.
One box houses 16 to 24.
Oh, okay.
And they need 38. That makes sense.
So
there's
basically
38
what you're saying is, I mean, everybody on the north, have you guys seen a topographical map of Gearhart?
Yes, sir.
Because everything on the north side of Pacific Way, from the highway, with the exception of the old drive-in property, from the highway to the beach, everybody gets their mail at the current post office. So I don't know how many homes are there, but you would need more than one cluster box.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You probably need 5 or 6 cluster boxes.
Oh, no.
No.
38,
38.
One box, there's 16 to 20.
and they're all gonna be in one location?
That's what he said.
We don't know.
I don't think we have I don't think there's land here in Gearhart to do that.
Which is about 912 boxes.
I don't know if this meeting is where we're gonna be able to figure that all out. We'd have to go down and look at what's on Fifth Street, how many people that box, and you'll give us measurements, right? That we can go around and we can determine where is the best location. Let's say we were to lease some property. I'll give you an example. This is just a hypothetical. We used to use this property that is just on the east side of our building for our building services, and we no longer use that. It's owned by the power company. If we were to lease that, and would you be willing to do your setup in a location like that?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
There
So,
would be no problem as long as we lease it and continue to lease it.
right.
We have what
Okay.
was called, what we would sign with you, what's called a mode of delivery agreement that we've established that this is where and it's a very simple form. Just we sign these all over the place, whether it's with a developer that's building 10 homes or 5 homes. It's just a mode of delivery agreement between us and the person who we're working with, that this is where we've established a delivery. And, we do this. I know you hear 38 boxes, but I mean, we do this kind of thing all the time. It doesn't take as much space as you think because we can, we back them up together
back
and
boxes
it's,
could be an L shape,
yeah.
right? But typically would be back to back because they're front loading. We'd open up the front of the boxes and load, and then the customers retrieve the mail from the front of the boxes as well.
One of the things that I will tell you, the feedback that we've gotten from customers when it comes to having them in one location, we're doing that very much so when we're out here, on the east side of the Cascades, some of these big developers putting in hundreds of homes. A lot of the residents like them all being together is for a couple reasons. One is they get to meet their neighbors quite a bit, and they like that. Second of all, it's for security reasons. They feel more safe when there's more together because they're frequent more often. And so you're there with other people. They feel safe as walking to the end of their street. It's usually, more lit in certain spots. And, it does help with security as well, because you get one box, even though they are high security, but you've seen things on the news. I mean, you get someone with a tractor and puts a chain around something, they're going to get something out of there if they want to. But it just prevents things like that from happening because more people are trafficking that area, and it does help. But that would be our hope, is that we would have just one location for all of the boxes.
And just at a glance, and it's up to the folks in the room and or the leadership, we just kind of glanced at two locations from a ground standpoint. What was next to the fire station? There's an open field and or location there. And then what was the other site to the right of?
It might be what Dana was referencing, maybe.
Yeah, the field on the west side of us is not our property. That's privately owned, but the field on the east side of us, or the gravel area on the east side of us, is the one that I was talking about that we've previously used. It's not our property. There's also a potential bond measure, but I don't know that we want to delay long enough for that to go through. But in May, the citizens will be voting on a larger piece of property, which might even be ideal for this. But it would be a 2-month delay to find out whether they're interested in that or not, and they may say no.
Okay. Well, I would tell you, we don't want to have speed to closure. The only time I made mention of that is just from the inconveniencing of the folks going down the seaside, right, to retrieve the mail. So, and I think when we met last week, I made the statement or comment, we'll move at your pace. Right. But the further we delay, the more time folks have to traverse the highways going down to Seaside. So we want to make sure we do this and we do it right. But at what cost? That's the only comment I would make in regards to the timeline.
Do you have a measure of how much square footage it takes to put in these 38 cluster boxes?
No, but we can provide that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I told Chad I'd get that for him, so I'll work with my maintenance person to see what they think that would be. Because it may not be 30. We may want to add some more parcel lockers to it as well, because we want to really minimize any type of inconvenience for anybody. So we want to have as much available as possible. And like I said, those, even the parcel lockers, would be something that we would pay for.
Well, something to consider in Gearhart is we have a lot of second homeowners. So a lot of the homes that do not get mail delivery wouldn't even be interested in mail delivery there. It's a vacation home for them. They don't get their mail there. They get their mail someplace else. A lot of the P.O. boxes, as I said, are rented by folks. I know, in fact, I know a gentleman who lives up on the west side of the 101 up near closer to Warrenton, that rents down here. And I heard that from one of our previous workers at the post office, is that it's not but those aren't all Gearhart people, but we would have to consider for future expansion some zoning changes in order for, from now on, when you're going to buy a house, you need to work something out with the post office as far as where you're going to get mail. We would have to work that bake that into the cake.
So just to be clear, all Gearhart post office box holders will have to go through an address change if we go to the cluster boxes.
If they want street delivery, Mr. Chastain had mentioned earlier, they can obtain a P.O. box at the Seaside or Warrenton, or maybe even go up to Astoria. It's purely up to the customer. But for those that do not want to go and do a P.O. box and they want the street delivery, they will go into the centralized cluster box by design.
No,
So
no matter,
here's-
no matter what, whether it's a PO box in Seaside, Warrenton, or street delivery, yes, everyone will need to change their address.
Correct.
It will, yes. You will not be able to move your PO box number that you have in Gearhart right now will not be able to transfer to Seaside. You would have to get a new address.
And so my street is a little bit more than a half a mile long. It's primarily full-time residents. It's about a mile or a mile and a half from here. So you're saying that you're not considering putting any kind of structure on my, let's say, 3/4 of a mile street?
I'm not sure.
I mean,
Are you asking, would you
Yeah, rather-
consider breaking up the boxes instead
Right.
of having a centralized location?
I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Dana's asking it better, that you won't consider more than one location. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And why is that exactly?
Someone asked a question.
Yes, why is that exactly? That you would only put them in one location?
Well, that is our current mode of delivery is centralized location. And we've had that in existence since 2015, right? It's no secret that there's cost involved with the delivery of mail, albeit convenient to the customer at the corner, right? It's not feasible for the Postal Service to have boxes at every address or at every corner. So that is our situation, or what we would call our current mode of delivery is centralized location, centralized delivery. Every new development, every new property moving forward will go into centralized. Or has been since 2015, excuse me.
So to circle back, and just so that I'm clear, you have no contractor lined up, you have no contractor on the list, nobody is interested in doing it. So our two choices are continue to go to Seaside or get this going as soon as possible. We don't even, polling the public and asking them what they want to do seems like it would just create a delay that would be counterproductive. If we want to get our mail back over here before summertime, hopefully, we need to get moving on this. We need to get information from you. You need to get information from us, and we need to just move forward. Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, yes.
And by wishing that it could be something else, we're just gonna create delays. I mean, we're faced with a situation where there are no good choices, so we gotta take the least terrible choice and move forward with it as fast as possible.
Has anybody bothered talking to UDs about the high school and moving? I mean, because Seaside's got no room for expansion. They're already cramped.
What are you talking about?
Well, UDs owns that building and they also own the old high school.
They don't
Seaside.
full-time.
Well, that would be the post office. Why would we do that? That's post office purview.
No, what I'm saying is that if, you talk about one central locations.
Have you all heard any talk about the Seaside Post Office being moved to a different location?
Not at my level, and it starts and stops with me. So if the two gentlemen in this room aren't aware of that, there's no such thing.
I just heard that.
So would
I'm just trying to throw out alternative.
would the post office consider purchasing the property to put the cluster boxes, or is that the responsibility of the citizens of Gearhart or the city of Gearhart?
Postal Service is not in a position to buy property, ma'am, to either build new post offices or to establish new postal delivery.
I mean, the city could purchase something that was interior. I mean, we deliver into apartment complexes that are CBUs. We do that all the time. It doesn't, this, I mean, I should reference that. This does not have to be pedestal CBUs, cluster boxes. If
we have mail rooms.
Yeah, cluster boxes can also be purchased like apartments, and we've seen beautiful things created, and it's interior, and they open from the inside, and so the carrier opens them up and delivers them and closes them up. I mean, we do that all day long.
So
But we
that's
don't-
similar to what we have now that we don't now have.
Yeah, you could, yes,
essentially what they
yes, I would
have.
agree. It is, you could almost consider it like a PO box kind of thing, but it would we can't do PO boxes anymore. It would be street delivery.
You would still have to change your address.
Yes.
Correct.
It wouldn't be
Yes.
street, our definition of street delivery, but your definition of street delivery would be your address you would use instead of a PO box number.
Correct.
Correct.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Do you want, we have folks in the public that we've got to get going to another meeting. We've got folks in the public that have questions for you. Is there a way that if they submit them to us, can we route them to you? You can answer them and we can share the information on our blog for folks?
Absolutely.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
So submit them to us and we will ask and we'll make sure that the answers are posted.
And I would stress again, as we've mentioned, if you know anyone that is interested in, you have my number or my email. I know the council does, or several of them do. And because is that still an option? Absolutely. Because we would be willing to do that. Just what's transpired so far just is not feasible, or they've backed out.
And to answer again to one of the earlier questions, we'll continue to allow the solicitation process, right, until we break ground and or come up with something totally different. So, everything's still open and on the table. As far as the mode of delivery, that won't change until someone comes forward and says, yes, we have a property, we got a building, we can go ahead and make that a CPU, etc.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Feel free again, any questions, summarize, roll them up to Mr. Chastain, and then we'll get them answered to the best of our ability, and then we'll circle back.
Okay. Yeah, just remember any answers you give us may be posted to the public. So I know that you guys will be professional. I just didn't want you to have any surprises. We're going to share whatever information you give to us. Thank you.
Fair enough, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.